If the apocalypse were to come tomorrow, would you be happy about that? I do believe that many people in society have some kind of escapist fantasy of the apocalypse, whatever version of it is, a zombie apocalypse, a financial collapse, the country devolving into a civil war, whichever country they're from. But a lot of people won't admit to having that fantasy. But it's the reason we have all of this media. It's the reason that we have companies like National Geographic making doomsday preppers, or the History Channel making Life After People. Wonderful shows that people watch and enjoy because most of us have that escapist fantasy. We want to escape something in real life because deep down, I think most of us feel the same thing, that something feels off or something feels wrong within society. And I don't think it's something that comes on suddenly. It's a deep rot and decay that's just been bubbling to the surface for decades now. It's this deep rot with the system that we're a part of that we want to escape from. Most of us want to get back to simplicity. That's why things like homesteading and off-grid living have really blown up in recent decades. You've got big YouTube channels of people just documenting their life doing those things, or people who aren't documenting their life doing those things and they're just doing them off on their own. Getting away from society, away from cities and away from all of the noise, and finding simplicity in their lives, the simplicity that all of us long for, but most of us are not able to achieve because we're stuck in a system. You might be living on your own in an apartment in the middle of a city, and you're living paycheck to paycheck. You're barely scraping by, barely making it. You can't even fathom the thought of trying to go buy a piece of land to build your own property, to survive on your own and get away from this system. So instead, we escape to our media. You know, we got Fallout, we've got I Am Legend, my personal favorite, A Boy and His Dog. We've got these things that we can look to. And like we think in our own minds, what would my life be like if I were put in that situation? If I was Robert Neville in I Am Legend living in New York City alone, or for the most part alone. If you guys have watched that movie, you know that he's not entirely alone in the city there, but during the day he is. Or if you were the courier in Fallout New Vegas, or the postman, if you found yourself living in the post-collapse world of the postman, what would life be like? A lot of us think about these things. That's the reason that this type of media is popular, dystopian media, post-apocalyptic media, because we live in a system. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It's all rotten and corrupt. But we live in a system where we feel trapped. You know, like rats in a cage. We are participating in this rat race that values money above all else in the world. You know, people try to climb the corporate ladder where, you know, the previous generation already pulled the ladder up behind them. So you're just basically trying to climb on a flat wall and you're not going anywhere. And you're stuck at this level and prices of everything just keep coming up here and you're not ever getting ahead. You're just barely scraping by every day of your life. But when you think about the simplicity in these worlds, think of like The Walking Dead. It is a harsh, brutal world that these people are trying to live in and survive in. They have to find shelter. They have to find clean water and food. And you've got flesh-eating zombies all over the place. If you go try to get into an abandoned building and try to scavenge supplies, well, you don't know if that building is full of walkers or if it's just abandoned or if there's some kind of raider or scavenger group living in there. You have to take your chances. Every day is a risk. But every day is a risk in today's world as well, isn't it? You say the wrong thing at work, you get fired, you get shit canned. You could potentially end up homeless in a week or a month, unless you can find another job. But the job market isn't always stable. So we're always stuck in this system. We're trapped in this system. And it almost feels like there's no way out. And we all have this escapism fantasy. People think about like their plans for it. That's why you have the shows like Doomsday Preppers, and that's why prepping is such a prominent topic that people enjoy and people talk about. And with prepping, you get a sense of community as well. Like, take the show Jericho, for example. Jericho, a small town in Kansas of around 5,000 people, they witness a nuclear explosion off in the distance, and they conclude that it's got to be Denver that got nuked. And then they find out other mushroom clouds appeared over other cities as well around the country, around the United States of America. And, they lose communication with the governor, with different government and leadership. They lose power. They don't have any transportation coming into their city to resupply them. They don't have like resupply of fuel or food or any of these things. And they have to survive as a town. That's a much larger community, but with prepping, community is a big aspect of that. People want to be able to come together and survive, because survival on your own is extremely difficult. You come together as a community, you can actually accomplish a lot. You can assign different tasks. This person over here is going to work on gardening. This person over here is going to work on water filtration. This person over here has mechanical knowledge. They'll keep our generators running. They'll keep one of our cars functional. And so a lot of times when we're looking at this media, we see things like The Walking Dead where they have a group and, eventually they get to like Alexandria, the Alexandria safe zone. And they put systems in place to actually survive. And they're still getting up and doing a job. They're still getting up and going to work. But they're not going to work for a paycheck. They're going to work so that they can survive. They have an actual purpose for their work. It's not just stupid busy work where they clock in at an office and sit down in front of a computer and they do maybe 20 minutes of work in like the first 4 hours, and other times they're just like looking at emails or answering phone calls, just stuff that doesn't even matter. And then they might do 15 minutes of work towards the end of the day. It's like the movie Office Space, if y'all have seen that, where he's like, in a given day I do maybe 15 minutes of real actual work. And I think a lot of people feel that way. But you're there for 8 hours, then you have your hour lunch break, so that's 9 hours. And then let's say you have a 30-minute commute there and a 30-minute commute back home. That's 10 hours. So you're getting paid for 40 hours, but really it's these soul-sucking jobs are taking 50 hours a week from you. Some people, they're taking more. And that's kind of the cost of a lot of these jobs that people might not think of as much, is that you're really losing 50 hours in a week, not 40. But of course, you're not getting paid for all of those 50. But a lot of this time that we're spent at work isn't spent actually producing something. You're not doing something of meaning or value. And this might not apply to everybody. You might have the perfect job in the world, the job that actually suits you, a job that you get up every morning and you're excited to go to, and you feel like you accomplished something at the end of each day. And if you have a job like that, that's absolutely wonderful. And I am excited for you, happy for you. And I hope that everybody could find something like that they're truly passionate about and they care about. And, they don't think about things like the end of the world because they want to get away from their current trajectory that they're going right now, which is probably a dead-end job. Most of us are stuck in that. But that's why we look at these apocalyptic worlds. It provides a sense of purpose and value. Even if it's a dangerous environment, it goes back to simplicity, something that we had as a society hundreds of years back. We had like feudal lords and, farmland, and they had peasants working their farmland. From the research I've done, those peasants had more days off per year than the working class has in modern day. They didn't have all the different entertainment and stuff. Maybe that's a good thing. They read books. They went out and worked and did their work, worked the farmland, or did masonry work or whatever else they did. They go to a tavern at the end of the day, sing some folk songs with people, drink some mead, whatever those people did back then. But it was probably more meaningful than what we do now. Even if they didn't live as long, is it worth living long in modern day, when as life expectancy increases, they just increase the retirement age along with it. They're like, oh, they're going to live to 95 now? Well, let's just raise our retirement age to like 72. Let's keep them working as long as we can. Keep them as part of the system as long as we can. And debt is another big part of that. We have so many people, not just in the United States, but that's where I'm coming from. As an American, I'm coming from that perspective. But this is a global problem. You have people in debt everywhere. And so you have somebody working a job and they're in debt. They're having to pay their mortgage. They're having to pay their car loan. They have like 8 credit cards, which is their fault for having those credit cards. But I'm not going to blame a person entirely for having those credit cards, because the system pushes credit cards on you from the day that you were an adult. It pushes you into that system. And, most of us have fallen into that trap. If you yourself have never had any debt in your life, I don't think that's possible. But if you haven't, that's amazing. Good for you. Keep that up. But I don't think anybody out there can relate to that. I think we've all been in debt. I think most of us are paying debt off now. I have debt I'm trying to pay off, which makes me stuck in a system. I have to go to work to get that paycheck to pay off my debt and to survive, just to get food and water and shelter. But we look at these apocalypse pieces of media and we have this escapism fantasy that we can get out of this rat race, out of the 9-to-5 wage slavery that we all find ourselves stuck in. And wage slavery is exactly what it is. The financial system enslaves all of us. We don't have chains on our wrists. We're not forced to go work out in a field. We're exchanging the most valuable resource that any of us has in our entire lives, which is our time. We're exchanging that for these big companies or for local, state, or federal government in exchange for money. Money that is constantly devalued. Money that buys less and less all the time. And we are tied to that money. That's how our society is built, how it works. We can't escape that, but that's what we're all trapped in. We are stuck to the monetary value of everything, but that's why we look to these pieces of media to escape. If we watch something like The Last of Us, it's easy to put ourselves in the place of Joel and see him going through like Boston, Massachusetts, where everything's been overtaken by greenery, and think, how would I be able to survive in that world? Like, could I put myself in Joel's shoes and survive when you've got, these infected people running around? You've got parasitic clickers running around. You've got subway tunnels full of spores. It's a dangerous world. But we live in a dangerous world in modern day. That one might seem a little more peaceful. You have those quiet moments where Joel and Ellie go out to the surface and they might have a flooded street, greenery everywhere, birds flying past. You don't have any traffic noise. You don't have any airplanes flying overhead. You don't have people a couple blocks away cursing and yelling at each other and having fights. You don't hear any distant gunshots. It's just nature and quiet, the way that the world is intended to be. And you find simplicity and calmness in that quiet. I personally prefer the quiet. I don't like cities. I don't like all the noise, all the garbage. I think it clutters your mind. I think it stops people from being creative and from thinking. And it's good to just take some time out of your day and just stop, get away from technology, get away from noise, get away from other people, and just enjoy silence for a little while and be able to clear your head, clear your mind, clear all the thoughts that you have, and just see what is able to pop into your mind, see if you could be more creative. But in these different apocalyptic pieces of media, that's what all of our characters find. You have in the Postman, I'm talking about the film now instead of the book. He stumbles in the woods across an old United States Postal Service truck, and of course he's trying to escape the environment. It's wet, it's rainy, it's cold. So he goes in there and he finds a dead postal worker. He takes his uniform, his jacket to warm up. But it's like a nice quiet moment. And he finds the bag of mail and he starts reading these letters that people tried sending to their family, years and years ago. And he's old enough to remember life before the collapse. And so it helps kind of bring him back to what they had before. But it can bring back the positive things and the negative things. He can be like, life was so much simpler back then. We could just go to the store and pay some money and get some food. But then you were also dealing with traffic. You're dealing with political crap always in your face. Just constant bad news on TV. People yelling at each other, neighbors fighting with each other. But you get into that quiet moment there and you can almost be envious of him in that position. So you've got good and bad in modern day. You've got good and bad in the post-apocalypse. Of course, it depends on the type of apocalypse as well. You've got alien invasions. You've got zombie apocalypse. You've got financial collapse. You've got natural disasters. You've got all kinds of stuff out there. World War III or Civil War, nuclear war. And so you've got different things, and how peaceful it would be is dependent on that type of apocalypse. But those of us who long for the quiet and long for escapism into those realities, it's not because we want to hurt people. It's not because we want to see other people perish in those situations. Not at all. I think a lot of like prepper types would actually be trying to help people when we're able. Of course, you can't help everybody. Supplies and things are finite, they are limited, but we would try to help people when we can and where we can. But a lot of people would die, a lot of people would get hurt, but that's not why we think about these things and why we wonder what life would be like if they happen. We just think about escaping to simplicity, a simpler time, getting out of the rat race, out of the wage slavery that we find ourselves in now. The hold that technology has on us now, especially with the emergence of AI, which AI could be another type of apocalypse. You look at like the Terminator series. But we long for simpler times, and if you can resonate with this, if you long for simpler times, or sometimes fantasize about the apocalypse, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I will be talking about more pieces of media in the future, like the ones that I mentioned here, like Doomsday Preppers, Fallout New Vegas, The Postman. I will have upcoming videos on those pieces of media. Some of them might just be me sitting down and talking and sharing thoughts like this, not having a script or anything. Some of them I will be more intentional about if I want to touch on certain themes within them. Because all of these pieces of media have very special and important themes to share with the viewer and the audience, and I want to kind of pick those apart and showcase them in a better light than you see just when watching the movie. So please do stick around. I appreciate you all watching. God bless.